Hails and good evening, YouTube. Yes, good heavens, it's the Prince again, and it's Friday. So, what's going on? Well, I just spent this entire day chasing around after crazies. Specific crazies being the Westboro Baptist Church and their God hates fags. And their interesting signs saying God hates America, God loves dead soldiers, and all those other interesting things. Unfortunately, they didn't have their single titular individual Fred Phelps, who runs the family and, well, is particularly scary. There was a woman with them that everyone thinks was Shirley Phelps, although I'm not very certain of that. They basically do a shotgun approach of protestation, where they visit like 7 different locations throughout the entire day. And of the highlights, the first place that we went to was a military funeral, which they like to protest because they suggest that soldiers are dying in Iraq because America allows gays. I don't know what they intend for us to do with them to prevent soldiers from dying, but apparently it's our fault for having gays running around doing their gay things, therefore killing soldiers. And the funny event for this was I was walking over to, well, watch the interactions and etc. like a good anthropologist, and immediately they catch on and like, oh, it's a vampire! We want to talk to the vampire! And vampires don't exist! And people were mentioning that maybe it's a little bit strange that they were calling me a vampire and saying that I don't exist. I didn't really feel like explaining to them that I'm not a vampire. I just potentially dress goth, which makes me look like a vampire. But I kind of hoped the fact that I was out in broad daylight and not bursting into flames to prove the point that maybe I'm not. The second place that they went to was the German consulate. And I have to say, I may have been at the German consulate, but I still don't know where it is, because the German consulate didn't look anything different than any other building. It was hiding inside of a strip mall, being the German consulate. I don't know why they were protesting the German consulate, just maybe Germany doesn't kill gays or something like that. Finally, they went and they took their protest to a high school, the Desert Mountain High School, and that created the largest turnout ever. They showed up around 3 o'clock, which is about the same time that the school was letting out, which created a gigantic, spontaneous protest, counter-protest, I should say, and lots of signs, and the resistance even brought out a giant, what do you call that, speaker box, and rickrolled them while they were trying to do an interview with the local news, eliciting some interesting faces from the Phelps family. Finally, at the very end of the evening at around 7 p.m., we all gathered together and waited for them to show up outside of an art venue in Tempe that was showing a weird, an interesting play about, well, guess what? Homosexuals, called the Closet Drama. The really interesting thing about this one is that it seems to be some sort of abstract play about an individual trapped in a closet. Okay, I haven't seen it myself. I'm reading the reading material. It says he's trapped in a closet trying to figure out his sexuality, but he is suddenly overcome by a voice, the voice of Fred Phelps, who happens to be, the familial leader of the Westboro Baptist Church. And his mother is replaced by a surrogate, Cindy Phelps, I believe, which is Fred Phelps' wife. And together they harass and annoy this poor kid until something happens. I couldn't tell you what because I haven't seen it. They did show up, but they didn't show up where we expected them to. They showed up way down the street and set up on a corner. And so a gigantic mass of people went and chased them down, dragging our rallying cry of Rick Astley songs with us, although it was suggested that maybe we use the Ride of the Valkyries. And finally, we ended the night by singing the national anthem at them extremely loud. And I think there were a couple goodbyes. Goodbye, goodbye. There's going to be one final protest tomorrow. They're going to be protesting at Luke National Air Force Base. I think back to the whole military thing where they say God loves dead soldiers. I'm not going to be there, primarily because I have a feeling that the military base can defend itself. I'll leave that up to the military base to decide how they're going to do that. I do have some footage, but it's terrible. And I have some photos and stuff. I think I'll put together a collage video for later, for all of you to enjoy and figure out what's going on. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Good night and good dreams.